Hey, what's up? This is Quentin Marcellus. Welcome to the sixth episode of the Carefree Career Podcast. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a model, actor, music artist. I'm a man of many hats. As you can see, I have my mini hat on right now. So, Chaz, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up, Q? Of course, everybody, this is Shaz Warhol on the ones and twos. I am the vibe curator in the East Coast, music artist, photographer, and so and so. What's going on?
And what's going on? We have our special guest, Carmen White Janak. What's going on with you, Carmen? Introduce yourself and tell the people who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Hey, everybody. This is Carmen White Janak, aka Rev, R-E-V. I am an ordained reverend for real. I have a degree in psychology and I love fashion. That's how I met Q. And I am a new owner of a dispensary, a medical cannabis dispensary in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow.
And also, I'm excited to announce that Lakeside Dispensary is one of the new sponsors and collaborators with Carefree Queer. We're going to do some big things this year. The first thing we're going to do is a music festival coming up. The first music festival I've ever hosted and created is called the Carefree Queer Fest. It is going to be July 29th on Saturday from 6:30 to 11:30. So I'm super excited to talk a little bit about that today on the podcast so people know what that's about. But how has everybody's week been? I definitely feel like, one, it's July. So, it seems like it was just June, like, yesterday. And it technically kind of sort of was because it came really fast. But let's talk about the 4th of July. What did you guys do on the 4th of July? How has your week been so far?
Well, my week has been pretty good thus far. As far as it being 4th of July, it was non-existent for me, really, because I can't really celebrate a holiday that's based off of stolen land. I can't really. I mean, when I was younger, because I didn't really know what it really meant back then when I was younger. So yeah, I was all for smiles and giggles, watching the fireworks. But this year, really knowing what it means as an adult and as a Black person in America, it's not such a freeing, celebrative like holiday like it used to be. So it was Juneteenth until midnight that night.
Trust and
I love
believe.
it. I love
Trust
it.
and believe that. I mean, that's I could just say same because we live in a building here in Tulsa, in downtown Tulsa, and somebody had something on our rooftop. I did not go. I did not wear red, white, and blue. And just like Chaz, I will say that for the most of my life, I did and would look, go and find that fit for, for the day and all of that, the cookout, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't do any of those things because again, it's not a day declared freedom for Black folk in this country, and particularly for our ancestors who built this country and were not free. And it was free. Now, what was free on that day, 1776, was free labor. That was free. And so I just cannot, I cannot celebrate that and did not. And I didn't feel like I wasn't missing out on anything. I called it an extended Juneteenth. And so happy, I just kept telling everybody yesterday, happy extended Juneteenth, because that's what it was for me. That's what it was.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. I feel that, and I definitely would agree. For me, I went to my friend's family's house I was about to say Thanksgiving. Oh, I'm already fast forwarding things. I went to for July 4th, I went over to my friend's house and with his family, and I would have to agree with the sentiments. I mean, I think I definitely celebrated because I popped some fireworks, and I think for me, I'm starting to realize that holidays are what you make it, and as far as the 4th of July, I definitely would agree with all of your sentiments about, the history of this country, being a Black American, being a Black queer American, and, just not really identifying with Well, actually, I feel Thanksgiving keeps coming out of my mouth. So I'm going to say Thanksgiving because honestly, last year, for instance, I just had this energy in my spirit about me. Like, I really don't resonate with the way that we celebrate Thanksgiving because of the history. And so, but then I realized, I said, you know what? It's time to reinvent holidays. Not like July 4th, Thanksgiving, yada, yada, yada. It's time to reinvent those holidays and make those holidays into whatever you want to make them into for you that has any significance in your life. And I also feel like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if I'm getting a day off, I'm gonna celebrate anyway.
Right.
So
Word.
that's the one thing I saw somebody post on Twitter. That's the one thing I'm gonna take as my day off. So
Right.
so
Right.
but yeah, so let's jump right into the topics that are on the table. So I'm gonna get the topics pulled up here. We have definitely some hot topics today. Let's start with the first topic on the table, which is that Salt Lake City investigates a series of pride flag burnings. So this article comes from Fox 13 Salt Lake City. It says officials are looking for tips as they investigate multiple LGBTQIA pride flags being cut down and burned throughout Salt Lake City. Just after 8 o'clock a.m. on Monday, a homeowner in the area of 850 South Washington Street reported their pride flag had been cut down and burned, Salt Lake City police reported. So, I mean, doesn't that sound like we're living in the 1960s? It sounds like Jim Crow and segregation is happening all over again, but for the queer community.
It is, though.
It is.
I mean,
it is. And
it is. Go ahead, Chaz.
and it's like, and I hate to say it like this, and it's just like history is repeating itself, but now for the queer community. Everything is happening back then, but now it's really targeting the queer community, LGBT community, and for that reason being is because we are now being seen as second-class citizens. We're the new second-class citizens now. It's not just Black people second-class citizens. It's everyone in the queer community that is second-class citizens. That means not just Black people, but white people, the Hispanics and the Arabics, and everyone within the minority that is gay, lesbian, bisexual, queer, everyone within the alphabet community that's under the rainbow, everyone that is the charm, the Lucky Charms. Us Lucky Charms, we're being targeted now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter what skin. It doesn't even matter your skin color anymore. It's about if you're queer. That's
It is
because now we're at a point. I'm so sorry.
No, please continue.
It's getting into a point where they're back to discriminating, queer people from jobs now. They're actually enforcing that now. Like they weren't enforcing it then, but they're really enforcing it now because now we're a threat. Yeah,
I think that I want to say that in this country, what is being attacked is anything that's not white.
Yeah.
It is anything that is other. Anything that is anyone that is unique and uniquely different, and that is standing up for that unique difference. It is being attacked in such a violent and visceral way, not just by words, but now we're seeing. It's been going on, what is true, and we have not really brought that to the forefront and put light on it. It's been true that folks in the LGBTQIA plus community have been physically attacked, verbally attacked, but now we're seeing things, and it's not covert anymore. It is very much out in the open. Like this happened, in the middle of the night. Cowards, right? Cowards. If you're gonna do it, do it with your chest. Like you didn't come up to somebody, you know what I mean? So it's, but they're also doing that as well. And the thing of it is that unfortunately, it's to be expected. Unfortunately, it is to be expected. We don't like it. We don't like it, but it is to be expected when we have countries who are a country who's now putting forth legislation to legislate people out of their jobs, legislate people out of their humanity. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
It's like we're
Exactly
legislating people out of humanity. And last year when the Supreme Court struck down, we know it as Roe v. Wade, but it's actually Dobbs versus Jackson. When the Supreme Court struck that down last year, one of the justices told us in plain language, said, I'm coming after affirmative action next. And I'm coming after the gay agenda, is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exact. I think that where we have to get smarter is the anticipation of, and when people, Mother Maya Angelou said this to us years ago, when people show you who they are, believe them. Part of what happens is that we keep thinking that, oh yeah, they're not going to do that. This has been around for a long time. They're not going to do that. And they keep showing us, yeah, the lies you tell. No, we're coming after that. And that very specifically means you. It means the two of you. It means my son. It means my trans son. It means someone sent me the other day, yesterday, sent me some preacher guy talking against he was an elected official talking about and bragging about that he was a conservative Republican Christian male, a Black man, and coming against trans. I was like, do you know me? And the person who sent it, they were using someone else's name that I'm familiar with. So when I went back and researched it, I was like, that's not who that is. I had to block the person, but I was like, I am a mother of a trans son. How dare you send me something like this? But that's what we're dealing with. And so, it can't even be marches anymore. We've done that already. We've already
marched. We've done peaceful protests. It's
We've done that already.
We've even gotten violent. To make a point.
Yep. Have you guys seen the show Lovecraft Country?
Yep.
And it's so crazy. It's so crazy that you bring up Lovecraft Country, because I actually been watching that consistently. I'm outside of here. I'm actually in my bathroom recording everything. So outside of this, my sister, my homegirl, and my niece actually, I actually put it back on for my homegirl so she can get caught up and hip to everything that's being brought to us again.
Mm-hmm.
And Lovecraft Country is one of those shows that really tells you everything. They go and they basically time travel to basically, to rewrite their past and stuff with their ancestors and stuff, to say, to save them, to keep themselves existing from what has happened, to their ancestors before. And this movie is so important for that reason today, because so many of us now are still stuck in still stuck within the realms of fantasy and reality, and aren't really hip to what's going on up here. As long as we understand, and I say this, I've said this, and each podcast that we have before, as long as we understand the Godfidence, as long as we understand that we are God, we are light and stuff like that, there's no sense of us all living here, even us queer people. We have to, we are the most, us queer people, we are the most spiritual people, within the human race, because we are the universe. So we are the most powerful people in here. We have to be twice as smart. We have to work twice. We have to work twice as hard. We have to be we gotta have just as much as bronze as we do our brains, because.
And you know what it sounds like? It sounds like something that my mom used to tell me growing up all the time. Like, as a Black person, she used to say, Quentin, you have to be twice as smart. You got to work twice as hard than them white people. you gotta, you know what I mean? Like everybody's had one of those talks from your mama, from your daddy about how you got to be a better Black person or an A+ Black person or a, top of the line Black person because you're trying to outsmart or outbeat a white person from taking your job or from taking your, yada, yada, yada. So it's kind of the same conversation. It sounds like that we're having just that internal conversation with ourselves, but yet that same conversation that we're having with our communities, because basically what you're saying, Chaz, when you said that, as a queer person, you have to work twice as hard, you got to prove yourself twice as much. Like I said, it basically, validates the statement that the Black struggle and the queer struggle are very
similar.
The same,
are very similar struggles. It's just now that I am Black, but now, oh shit, I got this. That's my second strike. Now that I'm Black, I'm also gay. So damn, I'm like, that's 2 strikes for me already.
Double
but
targets.
You know what? Right. But here's the thing, I would, and both of you guys are very open-minded and very spiritual. And that's what the Carefree Queer podcast is all about as well. Introducing spirituality into the queer community, consciousness. And so what I will say to that, to the bullet thing about how we have 2 bullets against us. I would actually say that I think that it is our enemies and it is the people that have I would use the word injected that fear into the Black and queer community that want us to think that we are bullets, number one. And then the second thing I would say is that as a spiritual person, I feel that I came here to identify as a Black and a queer person, because for me, I think I wanted to, as a spiritual person, I feel like my purpose is to, push human rights forward. And so the funny thing about it is that what our enemies want us to paint as a flaw about our characteristics, like let's be real, like people that like you were saying, Carmen, people that are white, or not even, don't even want to say like that, people that are white, because I love my white friends, I love my white people, so it's not a white or Black thing.
I love my white husband,
you know,
okay.
like, I mean, nothing against the white people, because it's not every white person, but
definitely,
but the thing is that the community, when it comes to, the Black queer community and, our white counterparts, it's a little bit different. And so when it comes to, the law, when it comes to society, and so that's kind of how I look at it when it comes to, I guess the point that I'm trying to drive home is that I honestly feel like I chose to be Black and gay, and I identify with being Black and queer so much that I don't see it as a flaw. I don't see it as a target. And I would say that it is our enemies that typically we have painted in the white community that want us to think that we are the target, that being Black and queer is a flaw, that there is something wrong with us. And I think that's why we end up being the target, because we believe that we are targets. But I would also say that, what Chaz said about how, queer people are very spiritual people, queer people have a higher vibration. I believe that queer people are very spiritual without even trying, because one, people have to learn how to unconditionally love us without understanding our experience and who we are. And then the other thing I would say is that we love outside of the box, outside of the Black and white box that society has created and made it seem like we can only exist in. So, I basically just am bringing it all together and just saying that, I definitely believe now that my Blackness and my queerness is a gift from God. And it was my godfather, David Bridgeforth, who told me that, son, being Black and queer is a gift from God. That's who you are. It's not something that you should be ashamed of. It's not something that you should have to wear as a target, because other people are making you feel that way. You're not supposed to absorb that energy. You're not supposed to take on those negative emotions and thoughts about who you are. And as Black and queer people, we carry that. We carry that pain and that trauma. And I feel like that's what attracts our experiences, honestly. So
I think that's also saying, Quentin, if I may just interject here, and I know we're going to move on, is that, speaking of systems as opposed to people, because it's there's systems that have been created and that were erected inside of this country that did not ever include us. And when I say us, I mean the rest of us. It did not, it was never, we don't have, as when folks start talking about the forefathers of this country, those aren't our forefathers. We have ancestors who rest on the other side today, and it's because of their spiritual technologies that we have been infused with inside of within our own bodies, within our own minds, within our own souls. Those are the things that help us to be bridges over what would be seen as troubled waters, right? That we get to be those bridges because of our acceptance of ourselves and understanding who we are. And just as you said, understanding that who we are, we didn't choose to be Black. I would say in the grand scheme of things, in a more macro way, I would say we did not choose, but we do know spiritually we chose this body that we came into, right? Exactly. We chose this body. And so yeah, right. So we chose this body, and this body might be a Black body and a Black and queer body or Black trans body, whatever it is, we chose it. And so now we get to live that out in ways that really do impact in such a powerful way our community, the communities in which we live in and thrive in, as well as because many of us learned this. We learned from a long time ago because it's in us that we know how to make a way out of no way.
Yes, we do.
We know how to make a way out of no way when everything seems to be stacked against us. We know how to get to our own promised land, right? We know how to get to our North Star and get to Canada because we have all around us our own Harriet Tubmans. And sometimes, quite frankly, we are it.
Yes.
I totally agree. I think this is such a dope topic. And so it's actually a great segue. We were talking about Lovecraft Country. We were talking about, seeing Black people in those ways. But let's talk about the ways that we haven't seen Black people, and that's in mythology. We have movies like The Little Mermaid live action that just came out. And I know Carmen is a Disney, I was gonna say you're a Janak fan, but that's your last name. I know Carmen is I'm sure you're one of those too, since your last name is Janak. And I'm happy that I now understand how to pronounce your last name because I said Janak, but for the people out there, your last name is pronounced Janak.
That's correct.
Janak. And it's spelled with a J. So I was gonna say, I know that you're a Disney fan because you just got back from Disneyland.
Did.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
Disney World. Yeah.
Disney World.
Yeah. Disney World in Florida.
Oh, I love Disney World. Disney World is awesome.
Yeah. I've actually been to Disney World, and I think that it's dope that we now have representation. Like I said, the live action Little Mermaid with Halle Bailey, who plays Ariel. Now we're starting to see images of Black mythology because mermaids are mythology. And, I tell people all the time that I feel like fiction is just as important as nonfiction. I feel like when it comes to Black storytelling, we focus so much on the nonfiction, and I feel like we're kind of still lacking in the areas of fiction. And I think those stories are important, because they empower us. They make us believe that our dreams are possible. They make us believe that our fantasies are possible and that we can exist in other realms, other dimensions, and we're not just slaves. We're not just we're not just a basketball player. We're not just these labels that people put on Black and queer people, but we're
not even just music artists.
We're not just music artists. We can be mermaids. We can be wizards. We can be whatever we want to be. We can be, magical beings as well. We can be mythology.
We are that.
We're all these things wrapped in one.
We're all, and that's what makes us so powerful. And that's the thing. That's the thing that's feared is, and if we would collectively really lean into the power that we already possess, we literally could change. I've been thinking about this all day. Like, I've been thinking about like folks who you don't want to make a cake for the community. Girl, sit down somewhere. We have plenty of folks in the community who know how to bake cakes. You're not the only baker in the world. We know how to we know how to bake cakes and decorate better than you. You know what I'm saying? So what happens if as a village and as a community, we start saying our economics, this is what we're going to do. I'm only buying cakes from queer people. I'm not buying any more cakes from you. I'm only going to use a realtor that is someone from the community. I'm only going to go to a stylist as someone who's in the community. When we began to do things like that, we shift. That's what's happening with Spill right now. I'm sure you guys have heard of Spill.
Yeah, I'm actually on Spill.
Yeah, that's what's happening with Spill right now. We're shifting the trajectory away from those Twitter. From systems that try to keep us out. Yeah. Quentin, I want to tell you that when we went to Disney, my daughter and I, it was the first time we stood in line for over an hour waiting to see Ariel.
I love that.
Black Ariel.
I love that.
Over an hour. And all of these children, I'm talking about there were children, their parents, people in wheelchairs, people on oxygen. I'm telling you, waited in line that amount of time. And I was looking at it wasn't just Black folks. It was every kind of person in there waiting. There were queer people standing in line waiting an hour and a half to see Ariel. That is the impact. That's the impact of our community. That's the impact of what you all are doing. That's the impact. That's the impact of this podcast. This is why you have to keep doing it, because it is a seed.
Wow. I love it.
It's a seed.
That is powerful, Carmen.
It's a seed. It's a seed to grow and to blossom so other people can see themselves. You need to see representation. You need to see yourself. Oh, I can do that too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because I'm a part of a community called Pink. Shout out to Pink Robe Chronicles. But what we say inside of that community, there are no small flexes. So when you say this is only this, there is no only. Don't put any qualifier in the front of it. This is our 6th episode, and it is amazing. It is extraordinary. Why? Because I had a vision for something, and then I followed through with the vision, and I put it into action. Period. Yeah. Hands down. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
That's it. And it shows somebody else that they can do it too.
I love that. I love that. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Chad, what are you thinking?
I'm over here I'm just in awe right now. It's just saying everything that I'm thinking, Carmen. Like, this is just so crazy. Like, put it out there, take up space as a queer person, as a Black queer person, as a Black gay person, as a Black lesbian, as a Black, pansexual, whatever. Take up space. Show yourself that grace that we've been longing, because as a gay person, as a Black gay man, I felt like all my life I've been, I've held my own self back, feeling powerless, not only standing up for myself, but being that same kind of inspiration for others that are like me, that wants to get out here and take up space and make a name for themselves and be authentic and not have to live by the heteronormative standards that is placed on us. I wasn't always gay, but guess what? Now that I know who I am, and fully believe in myself, I can go out here and push myself. I can go out here and I can, stomp my grounds and, move to the beat of my own drum comfortably, and still not even care with all these new rules that are being stamped on us now.
Period.
That's so true. And that's such a good point. Let's go into our next and final topic before we interview. And that topic is the Supreme Court's gay wedding website ruling. What the Supreme Court's gay website ruling means for LGBTQ Americans. So let's get the article pulled up. So basically, on looks like ABC News, what the Supreme Court gay wedding website ruling means for LGBTQ rights, excuse me. Can a florist refuse service to a same-sex couple? Can a photographer decline to photograph lesbians? Experts parse the 303 Creative LLC versus Ellenist decision. So basically what happened is that the Supreme Court ruled in favor that this particular wedding florist website can turn down a same-sex couple, and that is ruled as constitutional to turn down a same-sex couple because of their religious right. How do you guys feel about that?
It's ridiculous. I mean, I've already kind of weighed in on it. And I'll say this, I am married to an attorney. We also have a daughter who is an attorney, and friends of mine have been weighing on this who are part of the legal community. And what's true is we can spend a lot of time going back and forth about this particular person, or we can create every single thing that we desire in our own community.
Absolutely.
Why? Because we have florists. Why? Because one of my cousin is
probably the best florist, probably better than that person.
Period.
No, right?
Hands down. I mean, my cousin Anthony, you can look him up. His name is Anthony Flowers Ward. He has been doing flowers for 30 years. He's extraordinary, and he's a happily married gay man, and he's been doing flowers in the community for celebrities, all this stuff for years, and he's created a ripple. That's what happens when you plant the seed. You create a ripple for other folks. And so I'm just like, ma'am, if you don't want to sell your flowers to the community, no problem. Because you know what? We know how to make everything. We will make our own floral arrangements. We'll get our mama and them to put flowers together. We've been doing this. Again, to me, it is making a way out of no way. When we see that one door is closed, the window's up in the back, we gonna do it that way. So I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, no. And to your point, Chas, taking up space. I wanted to read this from James Baldwin, one of my favorite people. He said, "The place where you belong will not exist until you create it." We're gonna create. We're creating.
That is powerful.
Create the space.
Powerful word.
Yeah, create everything that my mother told me that she said, baby, you're going to keep looking for those things and you're never going to find it until you create it yourself. And she was 100%. That was a bullseye. And that's what I began to do, because I can't as a Black woman, and particularly as a womanist, we'll talk about later when you interview me, but a womanist theologian, I can't wait for the men's group to decide whether or not I belong, or whether or not my voice matters.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that. And I say the same thing for the community. To me, the beloved community, I say the same thing. We can't wait for other people to decide if we're valuable enough to have all of the same things that everyone else has access to, because we can give our own selves access.
Exactly.
That is so liberating and so carefree, and it's a very, and what you said, Carmen, is a very powerful spiritual message. And that is that, and actually, I actually want to quote something that my godfather tells me all the time, and it's that you can't have somebody else light your fire. You have to light your own fire. You have to be your own damn flame. You have to be your own fire.
You have to be. You have to be.
You have to be your own fire. And if you're not your own fire, you're going to always be waiting around for somebody to light you up.
Exactly.
And then they have the power
And they have
to
the power.
extinguish your flame when they get good damn and ready to do it. They can extinguish it
Exactly.
too.
So with that being said, it honestly makes me have an appreciation and respect for people that have been lighting their flame for a long period of
For a
time
long
and have a
time.
lot of success for it.
Hmm.
because
I
because
sure
now I
do.
realize that
Yep.
they're not successful because people are making them successful. They are
Exactly.
successful because they have lit their own flame.
Period.
So with that being said, we're gonna go into the flame that is Carmen. So Carmen, yes, you like that segue?
I do. I do so much.
Okay.
I do
Yes.
so much.
We're going to talk about the flame that we have here, our special guest, Carmen White Janak. So let's talk about your dispensary. Let's talk about what inspired this dispensary. Let's talk about the fact that you're a reverend. And let's talk about your trans son and that journey of accepting your trans son, wherever you want to start.
I started, let me just say, I started the dispensary. It was a seed of healing. And I've known my whole life that I had some iteration of healing within me. And I knew that about myself, but I was afraid to speak about it. And I think I shared with you, Quentin, when you were in the dispensary a few weeks ago, that my great grandfather was the first quote unquote faith healer that I ever knew and experienced. And so, with that being said, it was that history as well as ancestry inside of learning what the herbs and stuff by the side of the river that my grandmother learned very early in her life, and then transferred those things to me, teaching me how to heal yourself. Because I'm born in 1964, and so I came from a line of folks who did not go to the doctor, number one, because that was not something that was accessible all the time to them. So that was part of the history. So they had to learn how to heal themselves, whether that meant you made a poultice inside of fabric and put mustard seeds in there for fever, and put it on your head for fever, or you learned that if you put strips of cloth in alcohol and put it under your arms or behind your knees, that would bring the fever down. I'm teaching as I'm going. So like all those things, those are all the things that I learned, or using peppermint oil to pull infection out of your mouth if you had like an abscess, like a tooth or something. All those things I learned. And so I started thinking about ways in which my father could have received healing. My father served 2 tours in Vietnam. And when the man that went was not the man that returned. And what I often say is that Vietnam, he went to go fight a war, and then the war came back inside of him.
And that's what we have in common. I don't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say real quick.
No, you're fine.
My great grandfather, his name is Curtis Wright. My mom actually says she thinks that I get my musical talent from him and my Western aesthetic from him, by the way, because he used to wear cowboy hats and stuff like that all the time. But he actually served in the Vietnam War as well. My grandfather, not my great grandfather. And my grandfather, when he got back from the war, he was actually injured in the war. And he was injured in the war so much that he had a speech impediment.
Wow.
And I believe that he had some issues with his legs because of the war. I think he got shot in his leg. Anyway, I'd like you to definitely finish. But I just want to tell you that that's the one thing that we have in common. And so I'm definitely thinking about coming to the dispensary and bringing a picture of my grandfather's black and white photo to show you, since you have that black and white photo of your father, and he served in the Vietnam War. So that was something we have in common that I wanted to share. But I definitely want to let you finish and share more of your story.
No, thank you for sharing that. And so it made me, I began to think about, because what happened as a result of that, because of all that he saw, the trauma and then the post-traumatic stress disorder trauma, and then if we want to add the post-slave trauma that we also have embodied in within ourselves, all of those things, he didn't know how to deal with that. And so how he dealt with it was to drink. And that the alcohol began to literally drown his body. And so my father passed away and transitioned at 37 years old in 1975. So
Wow.
I was 10 years old, and that means that I've spent all of my life, now almost 5 decades, without my father. And so I just began to think about the what if he had had plant-based medicine to help him distinguish what was him and what was not him? What if he had some other ways in which to utilize plant-based medicine through cannabis, and then coupling that with therapy to be able to help him deal with everything that he saw and that he heard? And that's when I began to think about the dispensary, and that is my why. There are so many people, men and women, who have fought in subsequent wars, Desert Storm, Shield, etc., that I wanted to help. And then not only that, but those who were dealing with chronic pain, and how do they deal with anxiety? How do you deal with anxiety? And so those are all the things that, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, my background is in psychology and sociology. And so I really feel very deeply about those things. And I was trying to figure out how can I make an impact? And that was just another iteration of healing for me. And that is what I began to put out in the world. And so for me, my success is the fact that I had the idea, I planted the seed, and then I did it. And so, for folks who are, somebody said, oh yeah, well, I know she's making a whole lot of money. Not necessarily. Are we making money? The answer to that question is yes. But I'm not, that's not it for me. And I'm not going to say things like, I'm not in it for the money. This is not a nonprofit. Let's be very, very clear. We're in a business. This is a small family business. However, with that being said, we're in it to do good work. And so we're having an opportunity to do that. And I think you mentioned about our trans son, and I think at the top of 2020, right before the pandemic occurred, is when our son Jaden let us know that they were beginning the process of transitioning. Now, Jaden had already come out as gay, lesbian, that kind of thing. I knew that. I had no problem. I also didn't even have a problem or issue with Jaden being trans. Where it became sticky for me was the name change. And it was really difficult. And because the name was not, we didn't just pull names out of hat and just, shake it up and figure out. No, I sat with it. We meditated on it. We prayed over those names. And then our son said something very important to me, and it shifted everything. I mean, I had to sit with it. And I call it was my dark night of the soul, one of them. Our son said this is not about you. This is about me living free. Like, I'm tearing up because to hold yourself so close and so dear, to say to your parent, this ain't about you. This is about me being free. And I have to be free. And so you may be upset in this moment. I'm willing to deal with your upsettedness, but guess what? I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. And when I saw the strength of my child, I started backing up and I was like, my baby's right. It's not about me. And I need to get myself together because I got some stuff that I need to deal with. And I dealt with it because what was most important to me was my baby, period. And I told them, there's nothing that's going to separate, even with all that I'm feeling right now, all the feels, my little stank attitude right now, all of it, nothing is going to separate me from you, period. And no one either. And that meant family, that meant everybody. I was willing to separate myself from them if they had issues, and some have had issues, and because of it, they're not fully in our lives. And so that was a part of the journey. And I was willing to take the hits. And so when I say beloved community, when I speak of LGBTQIA plus community as the beloved community, it's because I'm not an ally. I'm a comrade. I stand on the front lines with folks and take hits too. And that's what a lot of people, they'll say, well, I'm an ally until things start happening.
Right. Until things start happening that they don't relate to.
That they don't relate to, and that makes them uncomfortable. Are you willing to sit in the discomfort in order for the person that you say you're fighting for can live in comfort and can live in joy? Are you willing to be and sit in the discomfort and have people question you? Like people will say, are you gay? Girl, I don't care if you say that, like you're not offending me. That's not offensive to that's not offensive. That's not offensive to me at all. At all. But that is how I have lived my life. And when I met this beautiful human, Quentin, it is we sat on a panel together, and it was like what we were saying to one another, Chaz, was more important than what we were supposed to be on that panel about. And we just started up conversation, and I left there with the connection that has outlasted the thing that we were there for.
Wow.
Has outlasted that.
That's beautiful.
And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for that. And he can attest to this, that I don't just talk. It's about how I live. It's how I live my life every single day. And as a ordained minister, I have married people. There was a couple that they couldn't find a place to have their wedding. I said, you can have it here. I took them up onto the roof of our building, and I married them out under the stars on the rooftop of our building, because I was like, it will not be said on my watch when I know you that you didn't have anywhere to go. That we're not going to do that. I'll marry you up here. And I did. And so the community is my community. It is not separate from me. I cannot untether myself from it if I wanted to, and I don't want to. I am very much involved and very much a part of my life. And so I am just thrilled that I get to be on here with the two of you this evening, and just to share a little bit and to be in connection with you. And I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, you've definitely said a lot of very profound things. And we're going to get into the Q&A. We're getting closer to the end of our podcast. We're going to get more into the Q&A. Chaz, what kind of questions can you think of for Carmen when it comes to, marijuana maybe, or when it comes to, owning a business? Can you think of anything that you want to ask Carmen?
I mean, so when it comes, I have two questions really. So one, when it comes to cannabis, what are because I'm a cannabis smoker, I'm a cannabis intaker, edibles and things like that. So what are the misconceptions about cannabis? especially for like music artists who consume marijuana and things like that on a regular, if not every day, every other day. What are some misconceptions about it, and how can we go about, intaking cannabis, for our health, and what are the benefits of it?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is getting addicted to cannabis. It is not the same as opioids at all. In fact, studies are being done right now across the country and the world on using cannabis for those who have been addicted to opioids to help them have that, to have, whether it's the body high or the head high, but it's not destructive to their bodies in the same way. Because that was the thing for me that I was thinking about with my father, is that this is not it's not destructive to the body the way that alcohol was. And that alcohol was if not now, when? It was a win. It was because it was going to happen. Because I was that little 10-year-old girl, little Black girl in South Texas, reading a autopsy report because I needed to know what happened to my father at 10. And when I read it, I understood if it was not then, it was going to be when this was going to happen, because there was a lot of disruption. So that's one, Chaz. And then the other thing, I think that creatives, and I won't just say musicians, creatives need certain things in order to release that creativity. What you read, all art forms are part of the releasing of that creativity. And also various strains will help with whether that's focus. In 2020, because of the pandemic, and I began to lose so many different people in my family, I had anxiety that I could not get rid of. And that's when I could, and I'd never had that as an experience before in my life. And so I started taking edibles to bring me at a level and a balance. And then I would very specifically ask, okay, this is what I do during the course of the day. This is what I need it for. Show me. And so if you find a place that is knowledgeable, you can get balanced the way that you desire to, without being on medications. Now, I'm not saying that people don't need to be on medication, because some folks need to have their meds, most definitely, to balance that out, the chemistry inside of their brains. But those are the two things that, that I would speak to concerning cannabis.
One question I have for you is, as vocalist, for me, I think I'm trying to balance my enjoyment of smoking, but also like being a vocalist. And so I think I've been leaning more towards edibles, because I definitely still want to enjoy my high. But I think that, like, for instance, I'm getting ready for my mixtape release that's coming up in August. And right now I'm actually rehearsing in my room and rehearsing and getting my vocal cords ready to give a great performance. And so can you speak to all the different ways that you can ingest cannabis without actually smoking it?
Yeah. So, Quentin, you don't even know this. So I have been singing since I was 6 years old. I think my first solo I was 6 years old. And so I'm very particular about my voice. So I am not a smoker. I'm not a smoker. Edibles all day long, but I'm not a smoker because I'm very, very particular about my voice. And so, because my voice is the moneymaker. My voice speaking, that's how I have made money, whether that's doing speeches, whether that is preaching, whether that is counseling. All of those things are how I've utilized my voice. So I'm very, very protective of it, which is also why I don't smoke. And I will tell you this, that recently I said, I want to try this product in my store. I got a tap on my shoulder. Spirit was like, you can do a lot of things, but that you cannot. And I didn't, and I haven't done it since, because I was trying to go against a very basic principle for me. That's for me. I'm not saying that for everybody, but because you are a singer, you protecting your voice is hugely important. And when you smoke a lot, it will shift your vocal cords, and it will shift the tone. It would shift the tone of your voice, especially if you smoke a lot. So you then may have to shift to edibles or tinctures or something like that, to where, and it depends upon what kind of high you want. And so, and even vaping still is you're still pulling it into your lungs, right? So that's the same thing. So, but if you're a singer, that's something that you have to be in consideration of. If you've ever watched or heard any of Billie Holiday's music. Now, she had a raspy voice anyway, but if you hear from the beginning to the end, how much her voice changed, the more. And, but she was doing like heroin and stuff like that. But the more she did, but she was still a heavy smoker. And not even cannabis. I'm just talking about cigarettes. And because of it, it shifted the tone of her voice. It shifted the tone. And I know that from family members who were singers, and they smoked, and it shifted the tone. So, my recommendation to you is to be very mindful of, like, if you want to say, I want this body high. Okay, we may need to take you up in dosage of an edible. Right? Might need to take you up in a dosage in an edible, and then say, okay, I'm only going to smoke this amount, and give yourself some boundaries around your smoking. So then that way you can be protective of your gift and also your instrument.
Right. Because I'm also, as a singer as well, I definitely hear what you're saying too, because I'm also a smoker too, and I've been thinking about going over to edibles and, to protect my vocal cords and things like that,
Yeah. And how you keep your vocal cords moisturized, and how you use the honeys and things like that to keep you actually, the both of you should be, particularly, I don't sing as much as I used to, but I still use honey. So I would say every night you need to get an organic, probably like a wildflower honey. And you need to take a little bit of that, like a teaspoon or tablespoon of that every night, to keep your vocal cords lubricated, so that they work for you. So that they work for you, and keeping, like warm towels and stuff at night before you go to bed, to keep that working for you. That is, who was that I'm trying to think about, even in the summer would wear scarves around their neck. That's to keep your vocal cords warm. So that's just a little bit of stuff that I know, because I grew up singing a lot, and would have to figure out how not to have hoarseness a lot, especially when you have to perform.
Well, Carmen, you definitely shared some gems, and we're definitely gonna get some notes from you off air, me and Chad, because I definitely feel like we definitely need to get some of this written down so we don't forget it, so that we can be better artists and improve our vocal cords. But I want to respect everyone's time. We are at the end of our podcast. But Carmen, I want to thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I'm excited for all the other many collaborations that you have coming with Carefree Queer. And before we end this podcast, we always do something very special where we give the listeners who are listening to us, whether it be on YouTube, Spotify, wherever they're listening to us, whether it be on Instagram, we want to give the people some words of wisdom to go with them through the week. So what are some words of wisdom? And anybody that wants to start first, feel free, and we'll all share our words of wisdom for podcast 6 of Carefree Queer.
When in doubt, take up space.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm a words girl, so I got this today, and it's by Audrey. No, this is not the one that I want. This is Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Howard Thurman is, let me just put it this way, as I told my niece today, if there had been no Howard Thurman, there would be no MLK Jr.
I'm gonna have to look up Howard Thurman. I'm gonna have to get into him.
His meditations are amazing.
And my words of wisdom are kind of echoing the sentiments that we already discussed on the podcast, and that is, you have to be your own damn fire and light your own flame. So
there we go.
With that being said, I want to thank everybody who is currently listening to the Carefree Queer podcast for episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6. We're Carmen White Janak. So again, her last name is pronounced Janak. And we are so happy that you joined us. We definitely got a lot of gems in this conversation, not only for vocalists when it comes to marijuana, which I think a lot of queer artists that tune into Carefree Queer are going to really take away that knowledge about how we can still enjoy and indulge in cannabis, but at the same time protecting our instrument, which is our voice. And then also just some of the topics that we talked about when it comes to our queerness and our spirituality, and how much love that you show your son, and the fact that you told your son that, well, your son told you that this isn't about you. I think that echoes so many sentiments in the LGBTQ community, because I think for so long that has been our message. This isn't about you, it's about me. And the last thing I want to say is that I tell Carmen all the time, and I'm going to tell her again, that I know that one day she's going to be the one who's going to be at my wedding, who's going to be helping me wed the love of my life. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Carefree Queer podcast, episode 6. And you guys have a great week, and we are out.
Out.